Hey guys, in this rapid review video, we're going to be looking at adding mixed numbers with unlike denominators. Now, make sure that you've already watched the video on adding fractions with unlike denominators because I'm going to be moving on from what I taught you in that video. All right, let's go. The problem that we're going to look at for this video is 1 2/3 plus 4 7/8. And you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, I have the steps that we're going to follow in order to solve this problem. The first thing that we're going to do is estimate our answer, just like we did when we added fractions with unlike denominators. So let's take a look over here at 1 2/3. Again, we want to estimate it to 0, 1/2, 1 whole, or a whole number. So in this case, 1 2/3, we can estimate it two different ways. We can round it either to 1 1/2, because 2/3 is pretty close to 1/2, or we can round it up to a whole, because 2/3 is also close to 1 whole. For me, I think I'm going to round it up. I'm going to go ahead and round 1 2/3 to 2, because 2/3 is very close to 3/3, and 3/3 equals 1 whole. 1 whole plus 1 whole equals 2 wholes. Now, if we look over here at 4 7/8, we're going to look specifically at that fraction 7/8. I have 7 out of 8 pieces, which means I almost have all of my pieces. So I can round 7/8 up to the whole number 1. Well, if I have 4 wholes plus another whole, that gives me an estimated answer of 5 wholes. So I'm going to add that together. 2 plus 5 equals 7. So I know that my answer should be around 7 wholes. All right? Now that we have found our estimated answer, we can go ahead and solve the problem. The first thing that we're going to do is find a common denominator, because when I'm looking at adding fractions, I can only do that when I have a common denominator. Right now I have the denominators of 3 and 8. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to find the least common denominator, or I could also find the easiest common denominator. And I'm going to go through how to do that both ways. So with my least common denominator, I'm going to look for the first multiple that I come to that 3 and 8 both create. So I have 3, 6, 9, 12. Remember, I find multiples just by multiplying my denominators. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. And I'm going to stop there because I'm about to run out of room. All right, I'm going to do the same thing with 8. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 3 is 24. And I'm going to stop right there because I have found my least common denominator, 24 and 24. If you wanted to do it with the easiest common denominator, remember you just multiply the two denominators together. So we would do 3 times 8, and that would give us 24. So for this problem, whether I found the least common denominator or the easiest common denominator, that denominator is going to be 24. So now we're going to look at step number 3. We're going to make equivalent fractions. So I'm going to rewrite my problem vertically. 1 2/3 plus 4 7/8. Now, the only difference between solving addition problems with mixed numbers and addition problems with just fractions is that I have to remember I have whole numbers. So I'm going to create my equivalent fractions. But before I do that, I'm going to bring my whole numbers over so I don't forget them. That's 1 whole here and 4 wholes here. Now, I'm going to create equivalent fractions with a denominator of 24. Again, I can only add fractions when their denominators are the same. Remember, I find equivalent fractions simply by multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the same number. 8 times 3 equals 24. What I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 7 times 3 equals 21. I have an equivalent fraction now. Moving on to 2/3. 3 times 8 is 24. What I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 2 times 8 equals 16. I've created my second equivalent fraction. Now we add. When we add with mixed numbers, we add the fractions together and we have the whole numbers together. So we have two separate addition problems going on. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 16 plus 21. Remember, when we add fractions, we never add the denominator. So we're going to do 16 plus 21, and we see that our answer is 37. So my numerator is 37, and my denominator is 24. And then I'm going to add my whole numbers. 4 plus 1 is 5. So my answer is 5 and 37/24. But wait a minute, 37/24 is an improper fraction. That means there's a whole number within that fraction. I need to pull that whole number out and add it to my 5 wholes to get a simplified fraction. So we're moving on to step number 5, simplify if necessary. And whenever I have an improper fraction, I am going to need to simplify. So, do you remember how to turn improper fractions into mixed numbers? Yep, all we are going to do is we're going to divide it out because fractions are division. So I could read that as 37/24, or I could read it as 37 divided by 24. So I'm going to take my 24 pieces and I'm going to put it into my 37 pieces. I know that 24 can go into 37 one time, and I'm going to subtract it out. When I subtract it out, I get 4, 5, 6, 7. 3 minus 2 is 1. I get an answer of 13. 24 cannot go into 13, so I'm going to stop my division problem, and I'm going to take that division problem, and I'm going to make it into my mixed number. Remember, the quotient is your whole number. So 5 and 37/24 is going to equal 5 plus 1 whole. Your remainder becomes your numerator, 13, and your divisor becomes your new denominator, 24ths. So now I have 5 wholes plus 1 whole. Well, 5 plus 1 equals 6. So I can turn 5 wholes plus 1 whole into 6 wholes. 6 wholes and 13/24. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at that fraction to make sure that's in the most reduced form that it can be in. I'm going to look at 13 and 24, and I'm going to ask myself, is there a number that can go into both 13 and 24? Since 13 is an odd number and 24 is even, I know that 2 can't go into it. I also know that the only way to make 13 is to multiply 1 times 13, and 13 cannot go into 24, so I've simplified it as best I can. 6 wholes and 13/24 is my answer. The very last thing that we're going to do is we're going to check it with our estimated answer. I said that my answer should be close to 7 wholes. I have 6 wholes and 13 out of 24 pieces. That's pretty close to 7, especially when I remember that over here I rounded it up instead of down. So 7 wholes should be bigger than what I got. And in fact it is. So 6 wholes and 13/24 is the answer to my mixed number addition problem. So there you go. That's how you add with mixed numbers. Thanks for watching. Bye.